Welcome back, amazing people. Comment where you're watching from today. We've got an incredible story that shows how one person's words can change everything in an instant. It was a typical afternoon at the Westbrook Mall, where the echo of footsteps and chatter filled the air-conditioned space. Among the crowd, Adrian Young watched with growing concern as a teenage girl's voice rose above the ambient noise, drawing uncomfortable glances from passers-by. The girl, standing near the food court with her mother Amanda Roberts, was becoming increasingly agitated. "You never understand anything," she shouted, her face flushed with anger. "Everyone else's parents let them go to these concerts. You're ruining my life." Amanda Roberts stood quietly, her shoulders tense as she tried to maintain composure in the face of her daughter's public outburst. The scene was painfully familiar to many. A parent trying to keep calm while their teenager unleashed their frustration in front of curious onlookers. Several feet away, Usha Vance observed the unfolding drama. She had just finished a meeting nearby and was heading toward the parking lot when the commotion caught her attention. What happened next would leave an indelible mark on everyone present. The teenager continued her tirade, her voice cracking with emotion. "You're so controlling. I hate this. Everyone at school is going to be there except me." She dramatically threw her shopping bag on the ground, causing several items to spill out. The mother's face reddened as more people turned to stare. She bent down to pick up the scattered items, her hands trembling slightly. The girl crossed her arms and turned away, refusing to help. Usha Vance approached slowly, her presence somehow both gentle and commanding. The way she carried herself spoke of someone who understood both sides of this generational divide. She had seen countless similar situations in her years of working with troubled youth, but this time, something compelled her to step forward. "Sometimes," Usha began, her voice warm but firm, carrying just enough volume to catch both mother and daughter's attention, "the hardest battles we fight aren't against our parents, but against our own understanding of love." The teenager turned, startled by this stranger's intervention. Her eyes met Usha's, and something in that steady gaze made her pause. The mall's background noise seemed to fade as Usha continued speaking, her words measured and thoughtful. "I see a mother who cares enough to say no when it would be easier to say yes, and I see a daughter with dreams so big they feel like they're bursting out of her chest. Both of you are fighting for love, just in different ways." The girl's defensive posture began to soften. Her mother stood motionless, clutching the recovered items to her chest, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. Usha smiled gently. "You know, I once stood exactly where you are now," she said to the teenager. "I thought my mother was the enemy of my happiness. It took me years to realize she was actually its guardian." The food court had grown quiet. Other shoppers slowed their pace, drawn into this moment of unexpected wisdom. The teenager's anger seemed to deflate, replaced by something that looked like reluctant reflection. "But my friends," the girl started, her voice smaller now. "We'll have many concerts," Usha finished softly. "But you only have one mother who loves you enough to weather this storm of emotion because she believes it's the right thing to do." Amanda Roberts reached out and touched her daughter's arm. This time, the teenager didn't pull away. Usha's words had somehow created a bridge between them, one built of understanding and shared vulnerability. The impact of this moment rippled through the food court. Parents who had been watching pulled their own children closer. Teenagers who had been smirking now looked thoughtful. It was as if Usha's words had pulled back a curtain, revealing the complex dance of love and growth that connects all generations. Has something like this ever happened to you? Share your story in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. For more powerful moments like these, the ripple effect of Usha Vance's intervention at Westbrook Mall continued to unfold in unexpected ways. As onlookers remained captivated by the scene, the story began to take on deeper dimensions that would touch countless lives in the community. Heather Butler, a high school counselor who happened to be shopping that day, watched the interaction with growing interest. She had dealt with similar situations countless times in her office, but there was something different about how Usha handled this moment. A perfect blend of authority and compassion that seemed to reach both mother and daughter on a profound level. The teenage girl, who we now know as Kimberly Alexander, had slowly uncrossed her arms, her defensive posture melting away as Usha continued to speak. "When I was your age," Usha shared, her voice carrying the weight of lived experience, "I thought freedom meant doing whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. It took me years to understand that true freedom comes from making choices that honor both our desires and our responsibilities." Amanda Roberts wiped away a tear, years of tension visibly easing from her shoulders. The other shoppers who had gathered maintained a respectful distance, but their presence created an impromptu community of witnesses to this transformation. Lauren Patterson, another parent who had been shopping with her own teenager, found herself moving closer to hear Usha's words. Her daughter, who had been giving her the silent treatment all morning over a similar dispute, stood beside her, equally entranced. "You see," Usha continued, addressing not just Kimberly, but all the young people who had gathered, "every parent carries two timelines in their heart. They see you as you are now, fierce, independent, ready to take on the world. But they also see you as you were, the small child who once needed them for everything. It's not about control, it's about protection." The food court had fallen into an almost reverent silence. Even the usual clatter of trays and buzz of conversations had dimmed, as if the space itself was holding its breath to hear these words of wisdom. Kimberly's voice, when she finally spoke, was barely above a whisper. "But how am I supposed to learn if I'm never allowed to do anything?" Usha's smile held understanding. "That's a brilliant question," she acknowledged. "It shows you're thinking about growth, about becoming your own person. But learning doesn't always mean diving into the deep end without a safety net." The wisdom of these words seemed to reach beyond the immediate situation. Nicole Bishop, a teacher who had stopped to listen, found herself thinking about her own classroom dynamics and how often similar conflicts played out in different forms. "What if," Usha suggested, "we looked at this situation not as a battle between freedom and control, but as an opportunity to build trust? Every decision your mother makes comes from a place of love, even when it feels like restriction." Amanda Roberts took this moment to speak, her voice steady despite her emotions. "Kimberly, I'm not saying no because I want to ruin your life. I'm saying no because some of the details about this concert concern me. If we could find a way to address those concerns together." The shift in the conversation was palpable. What had started as a public confrontation was transforming into a dialogue about understanding and compromise. Usha had somehow created a space where both mother and daughter could express their genuine concerns without the heat of anger. "Sometimes," Usha observed, "the strongest relationships are built in these moments of disagreement, when we choose to listen and understand instead of simply reacting." Crystal Davis, another teenager who had been watching the scene unfold, pulled out her phone and began recording. Not to mock or shame, as might have been the initial impulse, but to capture something she recognized as important, a moment of genuine wisdom being shared. The atmosphere in the mall had transformed. What began as an uncomfortable public spectacle had become a powerful teaching moment that touched everyone present. Parents found themselves reflecting on their own relationships with their children. Teenagers looked at their parents with new eyes, perhaps seeing for the first time the complexity of love that drove their decisions. Usha continued, her words carrying the weight of universal truth. "Every generation faces this moment, This tension between the desire to spread their wings and the safety of the nest. It's not about who's right or wrong, it's about finding a way to grow together through these challenges. Kimberly looked at her mother, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time seeing the woman who had sacrificed so much rather than just the authority figure who said no. "Mom," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm sorry for yelling. I felt like you weren't listening." Amanda's response was immediate and heartfelt. "Maybe I haven't been listening as well as I should. Perhaps we can sit down and talk about the concert, really talk about it. You can help me understand why it's so important to you, and I can explain my concerns." The transformation was remarkable. The same space that minutes ago had crackled with teenage anger now hummed with the possibility of understanding. Usha's presence had somehow created a bridge between two generations, showing them a path toward mutual respect and communication. Heather Butler, the school counselor, made a mental note to share this experience at the next parent-teacher meeting. She recognized that this moment contained lessons that could benefit the entire school community. As the tension continued to dissolve, other parents and teenagers in the crowd began sharing glances, some even striking up conversations about their own similar experiences. The food court had become an impromptu forum for healing generational divides. Usha observed this ripple effect with quiet satisfaction. "You know," she added, addressing the growing crowd, "these moments of conflict are actually opportunities. They're chances to show our children that love can be both firm and flexible, that boundaries and freedom aren't opposites, but partners in growth." The impact of her words extended beyond just Kimberly and Amanda. Lauren Patterson and her daughter had moved closer together, their earlier tension forgotten as they absorbed the wisdom being shared. Vincent Edwards, a young father who had been watching while holding his toddler, found himself thinking ahead to future conversations he would have with his own child. A small group of teenagers who had initially gathered to watch the drama unfold were now engaged in thoughtful discussion among themselves. Their phones, usually quick to capture conflict, remained lowered as they processed the deeper meanings of what they had witnessed. "The truth is," Usha continued, her voice warm with understanding, "growing up isn't just about gaining independence. It's about learning how to balance our desires with our responsibilities, our dreams with reality. And parents, their job isn't to prevent that growth, but to guide it, to help make sure the steps we take forward are solid ones." The wisdom of these words seemed to settle over the crowd like a gentle blanket. Parents who had been struggling with similar situations felt seen and understood. Teenagers who had been fighting their own battles with authority found themselves considering new perspectives. As the crowd began to naturally disperse, the impact of what had occurred remained. Conversations started between parents and children who had witnessed the exchange. Phone numbers were exchanged between mothers who recognized the value in supporting each other through these challenging years. Kimberly and Amanda were now sitting together at one of the food court tables, their shopping forgotten as they engaged. In real dialogue, the change in their body language was remarkable, from confrontation to collaboration, from anger to understanding. This wasn't just about one teenager and her mother anymore. It had become a moment of community healing, a reminder that the struggles we face in families are universal and that wisdom, when shared with compassion, has the power to transform conflict into connection. Would you like to hear how this story continues to unfold in Chapter 3? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories of transformation and understanding. The aftermath of Usha Vance's intervention at Westbrook Mall continued to ripple through the community in ways no one could have predicted. What started as a simple moment of conflict resolution between a mother and daughter had sparked a movement of understanding that would touch countless lives. In the days following the incident, Adrian Young, who ran the local martial arts academy, noticed something different about her teenage students. The story had spread through social media, thanks to Crystal Davis's thoughtful recording, and it had struck a chord with young people in unexpected ways. Dakota Campbell, one of the academy's most promising students, approached Adrian after class. "You know," she said, wiping sweat from her forehead, "I've been thinking about what that lady said at the mall, about how fighting isn't always about winning, but about understanding." The video had gone viral in their community, not for the drama of the confrontation, but for the wisdom of its resolution. Heather Butler, the school counselor who witnessed the original event, had already used it as a discussion point in several of her sessions with struggling students. What made Usha's words so powerful, Heather explained to her colleague, Regina Newton, was how she managed to validate both perspectives without taking sides. She showed us that understanding doesn't mean agreeing, it means recognizing the humanity in each other's positions. The impact was particularly visible at Westbrook High School, where Kimberly Alexander attended. The initial embarrassment of her public outburst had transformed into something unexpected: respect. Her classmates saw how she had chosen to listen and learn rather than persist in anger, and it had changed the dynamic of their interactions. Marissa Olson, the college counselor, noticed a shift in how students approached conflicts with authority. "There's less defensiveness," she observed during a staff meeting. "They're starting to ask different questions, not just 'why can't I?' but 'help me understand why.'" The local parent support group, led by Amber Frost, had seen their attendance double. Parents who had been struggling in silence with their own teenage conflicts began showing up, seeking the kind of wisdom they had witnessed in that viral video. "What Usha showed us," Amber explained to the group, "was that these moments of tension aren't failures in parenting. They're opportunities for growth, but we need to be brave enough to step back from our own emotions and really listen." Meanwhile, Amanda Roberts and her daughter Kimberly had become unexpected ambassadors for this new approach to conflict resolution. Their story didn't end in the mall that day. It had only begun. "We still disagree sometimes," Amanda shared with the parent support group, "but now we have tools for handling those disagreements. We've learned to pause, to breathe, to really hear each other." Kimberly, who had initially been mortified by the public nature of their confrontation, found herself speaking to her peers about the experience. "It's weird," she confided to her friend Natasha Tran, "but that moment that I thought would ruin my life actually helped me understand my mom better." The impact extended beyond just parent-teen relationships. Lawrence Hunter, a local business owner, incorporated some of Usha's principles into his management style. "It's about seeing the whole person," he explained to his team, "not just the behavior in front of you." At the Martial Arts Academy, Adrian Young had started incorporating more discussion about emotional intelligence into her classes. "Physical discipline is important," she told her students, "but understanding the source of conflict is just as crucial as knowing how to defend against it." The video continued to circulate, gaining new viewers and sparking fresh conversations. Each share brought with it comments from people who saw their own struggles reflected in that mall moment. Mackenzie Smith, a local journalist, reached out to Usha for an interview. "What made you step forward that day?" she asked. "What made you think you could make a difference in that moment?" Usha's response was characteristically thoughtful. "In that moment, I saw more than just a mother and daughter arguing. I saw a universal struggle, the dance between protection and freedom, between love and independence." These are battles we all face, just in different forms. The interview became part of a larger story about community transformation, how one moment of wisdom, shared with compassion, could create ripples of change throughout an entire town. Westbrook High School, the impact continued to grow. Whitney Hunter, the student body president, proposed a new peer mediation program inspired by the principles they had learned from Usha's intervention. What if, Whitney suggested to the student, counsel, we could help each other work through conflicts the way Usha helped Kimberly and her mom? What if we could learn to listen first, react second? The idea gained traction quickly. Students who had witnessed the mall incident or seen the video volunteered to be trained as peer mediators. Even those who had initially been skeptical found themselves drawn to this new approach to handling disagreements. Dakota Wiggins, known for his quick temper, surprised everyone by being one of the first to volunteer. "Maybe," he said during training, "if someone had talked to me like that lady talked to Kimberly, I wouldn't have gotten into so many fights." The changes weren't just happening at school. Local businesses began reporting fewer incidents of teenage disruption. The mall itself, where it all began, noticed a shift in how young people interacted with security staff and store employees. Cynthia Green, who owned the coffee shop across from where the incident occurred, observed the transformation with interest. "It's like they learned that being heard doesn't require raising their voice," she remarked to her regular customers. The parent support group expanded its reach, partnering with other community organizations to offer workshops on communication and conflict resolution. They called it the Bridge Building Program, inspired by how Usha had bridged the gap between generations that day in the mall. Local churches and community centers requested similar programs. The demand for this kind of wisdom and guidance revealed a hunger in the community for better ways to handle conflict and build understanding. Even the local police department took notice. Officer Russell Haas, who specialized in youth outreach, began incorporating elements of Usha's approach into his work with troubled teens. "When you show them you're willing to listen," he reported, "they're more likely to open up about what's really bothering them." The impact on individual families continued to emerge. Heather Mason, a physical therapist and single mother, shared how the incident had helped her repair her relationship with her teenage son. "We were headed down a path of constant confrontation," she admitted. "But seeing that video, hearing those words, it changed how we talked to each other." As the weeks passed, the story might have faded from social media, but its effects remained tangible in the community. The principles Usha had demonstrated that day, listening with compassion, acknowledging both sides of a conflict, finding common ground in seeming opposition, had taken root in the collective consciousness of the town. Would you like to see how this story concludes in Chapter 4? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about moments that change lives forever. 3 months after the incident at Westbrook Mall, the true magnitude of Usha Vance's impact became clear during an unexpected community gathering. The local community center, usually quiet on weekday evenings, was filled to capacity with faces both familiar and new. Adrienne Young stood at the podium, looking out over the assembled crowd. The martial arts instructor had never imagined she would be part of organizing something like this, but here she was, preparing to introduce what they had come to call the Community Bridge Initiative. "When we witnessed that moment in the mall," Adrienne began, "none of us could have predicted how it would transform our community. But sometimes the smallest moments contain the biggest lessons." In the audience, Amanda Roberts and Kimberly Alexander sat together, their relationship now a testament to the power of understanding and open dialogue. Beside them, Heather Butler, the school counselor who had witnessed the original incident, nodded in agreement as Adrienne spoke. The changes in their community had been both subtle and profound. The local high school reported a 30% decrease in disciplinary actions. The peer mediation program, initiated by Whitney Hunter, had become a model that other schools were eager to adopt. Dakota Campbell, now one of the program's most effective mediators, shared her experience with the audience. "Before, I thought strength meant standing your ground no matter what. Now I understand that real strength often lies in the willingness to listen and understand." The success stories continued to multiply. Mariah Travis, who had struggled with authority figures, now helped train new peer mediators. Vincent Edwards, whose tech skills had once been used to record conflicts for social media, now documented positive transformations in the community. Lawrence Hunter, speaking from his experience as a business owner, described how implementing these principles had transformed his workplace. "We've seen increased productivity, better communication, and a stronger sense of team unity, all because we learned to listen before reacting." The initiative had spread beyond the school and into various aspects of community life. Brianna Dominguez, who ran the local youth center, reported a significant change in how teenagers handled disagreements. "They're teaching us adults a thing or two about patience and understanding," she admitted with a smile. As the evening progressed, more stories emerged. Amber Frost shared how the parent support group had evolved into a community-wide resource for conflict resolution. Regina Newton described the transformation she'd witnessed in her classroom, where students now approached challenges with newfound maturity. But perhaps the most powerful testimony came from Crystal Davis, the teenager who had initially recorded the mall incident. "I started filming that day expecting drama," she confessed. "Instead, I captured something that changed how I see the world. Now, I use my camera to document moments of connection and understanding." The impact extended beyond just teenage conflicts. Madeline Price, a local business owner, described how these principles had helped her resolve a long-standing dispute with a neighboring shop. "We went from barely speaking to collaborating on community events," she revealed. As the stories continued, it became clear that what happened that day in the mall had sparked something larger than anyone could have anticipated. The community had discovered a new way of handling conflicts, one that emphasized understanding over confrontation, dialogue over discord. Russell Haas, the police officer who had incorporated these principles into his youth outreach work, shared some remarkable statistics. "We've seen a significant decrease in teenage-related incidents," he reported. "Young people are choosing to talk things out rather than act out." The evidence of change was everywhere. The mall, once a hotspot for teenage drama, had become a place where young people gathered to support and encourage each other. The coffee shop owned by Cynthia Green had transformed into an unofficial meeting spot for peer mediators and their mentees. Natasha Tran, who had once been skeptical of the whole initiative, now led workshops teaching communication skills to younger students. "It's not about avoiding conflict," she explained. "It's about handling it in a way that brings people together instead of pushing them apart." The Community Bridge initiative had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What started as a moment of intervention between a mother and daughter had evolved into a movement that touched every corner of their town. Mackenzie Smith, the local journalist who had first interviewed Usha, had continued to document the community's transformation. Her articles had caught the attention of neighboring towns, who were now reaching out to learn more about implementing similar programs. Heather Mason stood to share her perspective as both a healthcare provider and a parent. "The physical tension we used to see in our young patients has decreased," she noted. "When people feel heard and understood, it affects their whole well-being." The evening culminated with a surprise video message from Usha Vance herself. Her face appeared on the screen, her presence as calm and wise as it had been that day in the mall. "What happened that day," Usha began, "wasn't about me. It was about recognizing the universal need for understanding and connection. Each of you has taken that moment and transformed it into something remarkable." The audience listened intently as she continued. "You've shown that real change doesn't require grand gestures or elaborate programs. It starts with a willingness to listen, to understand, and to see beyond our immediate reactions." As the video concluded, Adrienne Young returned to the podium. "We gather here not just to celebrate what we've accomplished," she said, "but to commit to continuing this work. Every conflict is an opportunity for growth, every disagreement a chance to build understanding." The evening ended with an announcement that surprised and delighted everyone. The City Council had unanimously voted to establish a permanent Youth-Adult Partnership Council, ensuring that the principles of understanding and communication would continue to guide community decisions. Trevor Valdez, once known for his troubled past, had been selected as one of the youth representatives. "If someone had told me 3 months ago that I'd be doing this," he said, shaking his head in amazement, "I would have laughed. But here we are." As the gathering drew to a close, Amanda Roberts and Kimberly Alexander approached the podium together. Their story, which had started this movement, had become a powerful testament to the possibility of transformation. "We could have remained stuck in that moment of conflict," Amanda reflected. "Instead, thanks to Usha's wisdom and our community's support, we found a way to grow through it." Kimberly nodded in agreement. "Now, when we disagree, we remember to listen first. We remember that understanding doesn't mean giving in, it means growing together." The evening concluded with a commitment from everyone present to continue building bridges of understanding in their community. The transformation that began with one moment in a mall had become a lasting legacy of positive change. What moments of understanding have you witnessed in your community? Share your stories in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring tales of transformation. Remember, sometimes the most powerful changes start with a single moment of wisdom, shared at exactly the right time. Thank you for being part of this journey.